All Indiana Politics is your premier source for Indiana politics, focusing on issues that matter to you.
I still want us to be the best in the Midwest.
We can't afford another lockdown.
Give the citizens of this country the relief they need.
Education in the state of Indiana remains priority number one.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage.
We don't know exactly where the economy will be in January.
People are worried with good reason.
Exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders.
We have the resources here in the state of Indiana to care for those who are in need.
Expert analysis on critical legislation.
We need to reform those laws.
This recovery is going to take some time.
We've got to anticipate that there'll be a budget shortfall.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
Good morning and welcome to this post-election edition of All Indiana Politics. I'm Phil Sanchez. It's a comeback for the history books. Donald Trump, now only the second person ever to win non-consecutive terms in the White House. He's the first since Grover Cleveland defeated Indiana's own Benjamin Harrison back in 1892. Trump swept all of the battleground states. Unlike his 2016 win, Trump won both the electoral vote and the popular vote. He also made major inroads among traditional Democratic groups, particularly Hispanic voters. He says his term will usher in a new golden age.
We're going to help our country heal. We have a country that needs help, and it needs help very badly. We're going to fix our borders. We're going to fix everything about our country. And we made history for a reason tonight, and the reason is going to be just that.
Trump's victory elevates 40-year-old J.D. Vance to the vice presidency. He's the first millennial and the first Marine Corps veteran. He became to either become vice president or president. And meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris is urging her supporters to back the peaceful transition of power. Harris conceded the election on Wednesday. She says that she's proud of the way her supporters ran her campaign. She says her campaign was about bringing together people who love America. Harris told her supporters not to give up the fight.
And so to everyone who is watching, do not despair. This is not a time to throw up our hands. This is a time to roll up our sleeves. This is a time to organize, to mobilize, and to stay engaged for the sake of freedom and justice and the future that we all know we can build together.
Harris's boss, President Joe Biden, also has vowed a peaceful transfer of power. Trump will be sworn in as the 47th president of the United States on January 20th. Now, Republicans also swept the field back here in Indiana as well. Senator Mike Braun easily defeated former Superintendent of Public Instruction Jennifer McCormick. This is the sixth consecutive governor win for the Republican Party. Braun won a six-way primary in May that was the most expensive in the state's history. In the Attorney General's race, Todd Rokita got nearly 60% of the vote on his way to a second term. And in the U.S. Senate race, Congressman Jim Banks beat two challengers to win the seat Braun is leaving behind. Now, Braun is already laying out his plans for his first days in office. Our Garrett Berquist tells us what we can expect over the next 2 months.
55% of Hoosier voters picked Mike Braun. He says that gives him some leverage in the State House.
I think it's an honor. And it's a big, like I said, platter of opportunity, and I'll accept it humbly and try to engage everyone in my own party along with good ideas across the aisle.
Braun says he'll spend his first 90 days in office reviewing what does and does not work in every state agency. He says some items will take more than one legislative session. He especially zeroed in on lowering health care costs.
Those percentages are shameful. Our general health as a state and the cost of it, something that if we get that correct, that will singly be better than what we've probably done collectively over many generations of past governors.
Among Braun's first tasks will be appointing dozens of agency heads and senior staff. I asked him what he's looking for as he decides who to hire.
Well, do you have the experience? Are you willing to reform if it needs to be reformed? Do you have ideas to where you're going to be kind of simpatico? And are you going to be a self-starter with energy?
Braun says he'd prefer to avoid fights over social issues. But Republicans in the General Assembly have embraced cultural issues over the past 3 sessions, including restrictions on abortion and transgender student athletes. Braun's own Lieutenant Governor, Micah Beckwith, made social issues central to his own campaign.
That doesn't mean you're going to be oblivious to them or you're not going to be drawn into the fray. All I can tell you is that immediately creates division, and they change over time.
Braun will take the oath of office on the second Monday in January, as the state constitution requires. That day falls on January 13th. At the State House, I'm Garrett Bergquist for Wish TV, wishtv.com, or follow us on Facebook for updates.
All right, coming up, Indiana's best political team breaks down what happened, including whether this represents a realignment election. Coming up. Welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome in 2 members of Indiana's best political team, Republican Allie Bartlett and Democrat Dana Black. So much to unpack from this week. Let's begin with the big one. Donald Trump is on his way back to the White House. This time he won both the popular vote and the Electoral College. He also won, or at least overperformed, in some urban counties. Allie, we'll start with you. Is this a political realignment and an emergence of a new Republican coalition, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think this is just a referendum on the policies that we've seen for the last 3.5 years. I mean, especially the fact that Donald Trump won the popular vote. There's just no room to push back on the fact that everything that was coming out of the Biden-Harris administration was not a reflection of them listening to the American people. The American people are pushing back on those policies that led to historic levels of inflation. It's the economy that people care about. It's their public safety. It's immigration. It's stuff that impacts people every single day. And going out there and talking about issues like abortion, while they're impactful to people and they're emotional, it's just a reflection of the fact that the Democratic Party was not listening to American voters.
And Dana, you were with me on election night. This continues a pattern that began to emerge back in 2020, as you know. Trump made inroads into traditionally Democratic groups, such as Black and Hispanic men. So how does the Democratic Party respond to this in the next term?
Well, obviously, we have to, listen more, as Allie said, but he really didn't improve that much with the Black vote. It was the same in 2020 as it was in 2024. Also, he actually didn't receive more votes this time. He actually received less votes. It was just less people decided to participate. And we have to find out why those folks decided to stay home. I find it disheartening still, though, that people would rather go with someone who already said, I'm going to apply these tariffs, and everybody knows that tariffs are going to mean higher costs on goods for you and your family. So if was it really about the economy? Because he already said he's going to make life harder for you on the goods and services that you purchase. He's also going to put a vaccine denier in charge of our health care. And Elon Musk is going to be in charge of whatever that new department he is creating. So I don't even know if it was really about policy, which is really scary to me, because all of the policies that Donald Trump offered up are going to make life harder economically for the American people.
Allie, of course, is shaking her head in disagreement. So, Allie, I'll let you respond. Specifically, the tariffs, which I've heard a lot of Republicans also push back on as well. I've even heard some conservatives say that, hey, that's just a tax.
Look, at the end of the day, Donald Trump has already served as president of the United States, so he has a track record for us to look back on of success in building up the American economy. I mean, I've seen news stories as early as this morning about companies already seeking to move their manufacturing back to the United States hours after the election was called. I mean, we're seeing impacts already on our economy, and I think that's what we're going to continue to see. And I think, just to push back on Dana's point about Robert F. Kennedy and Elon Musk and others that Donald Trump will likely include in his administration, I think that's a huge part of why he won. He has shown that he is willing to broaden his circle to people that reflect the desires of the American people. Americans want to make our country healthy again. Americans want to have medical freedom. Americans want to see our infrastructure improve. All these things that these people that are not bureaucrats, they're not, these run-of-the-mill politicians that the Democrats tend to include. They are the people that are out there in the industry, and they're experts, and they're reflective of what Americans want to see. We want to make America great again. We want to take back our country. And this is why he was elected. That's why he won the popular vote.
Go ahead, Dana. Jump in, 30 seconds, respond, and then I got to move on.
Yeah, first of all, he wants Trump loyalists. He doesn't want people that are actually experts in the field that they're going to be representing. That is scary to put somebody who is totally unqualified to run an agency in charge of an agency.
So, Dana, given how this election went, were Democrats right to pressure Biden to drop out after that first debate?
I honestly was never a fan of that, but once it was done, I was rocking with Harris. I felt it looks like we got the same outcome anyway. And unfortunately, what did we do to Vice President Harris's opportunities for the future? I don't know. We can sit back and second guess the decision, but the bottom line was Biden still had to say, yes, I'm going to step back. He didn't have to, even though he was being pressured or people were coming at him. He still made the conscious decision to say, I'm going to step back for the better good of the country. But as of right now, he was the only one that was able to beat Trump. And it still appears that way.
Yeah.
But again, that's Monday morning quarterbacking. He stepped back, and Harris ran a heck of a campaign. She outraised. She did everything that she was supposed to do as a candidate. Unfortunately, people wanted the 34-time convicted felon over the prosecutor. They wanted someone who was found guilty of fraud over someone who prosecutes frauds. Is that policy? I don't know.
Allie, I'll let you weigh in on that as well. But also, can we point to maybe a single moment or issue in this election that ultimately tipped the scales in Trump's favor?
Yeah, well, if what Dana's saying is true, and I'm not saying that it is, but doesn't it really say something about what Americans want if they are willing to elect that person? I think it says that person is listening to them and reflecting what they want to see changed in this country. I mean, from the beginning, I've said it on this show several times, the polling to look at in a presidential race is issues polling. It's the economy and immigration. Those were the two biggest issues that impact people every single day. Identity politics is a losing game, and that's where the Harris campaign tried to go, and it doesn't work because Americans are Americans, and they don't want to be shoehorned into one specific category. I think that really angered people. I think she lost a lot from her base, and that's why Trump was able to connect with young voters and black voters and Hispanic voters in ways that Republicans haven't in ages. The top-down mandate from the Democratic elites when it came to having Joe Biden step aside, I think it was signed, sealed, delivered right then and there.
Dana, I'll let you respond to that. Also, Allie brought up a good point about polling. Can we, at this point, what are our thoughts on polling?
I think the polling was correct. The polling in all, especially the battleground states, had it within 2 or 3 points, and Trump won in 2 or 3 points. It could have went either way, so that polling was okay. Now, here's the thing: it's interesting when people talk about identity politics, but we need to understand that white people are an identity too. And so when you say that, people in Puerto Rico and co-sign saying that people in Puerto Rico is a garbage island, or that the immigrants who are here legally should be rounded up and deported, that is just saying I want to protect white supremacy. So stop saying that identity politics is only about people who are brown, black or brown. White folks want to hold on to white supremacy because they feel safer that way.
But it didn't impact the Hispanic vote at all, Dana.
But see, a lot of Hispanic folks don't want to be classified as black or brown people. There's that. I mean, honestly, the anti-blackness in America is real, and it's astounding. And that's why a lot of people are saying, don't call us BIPOC, call us black and the other people of color, because there's no solidarity when it comes to black people.
Okay. All right. Hey, Dana, Allie, stay with us. When we come back, we'll turn to the state level results. Stick with us. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to All Indiana Politics. Still with us are Democrat Dana Black and Republican Allie Bartlett. Let's turn our attention now to the state level races. Dana, Democrats made a big play for the center, as you know, with Jennifer McCormick and Terry Gooden. Was this maybe the wrong strategy?
Well, I know at the very beginning of the campaign, I had hoped that that Jennifer would pick someone who was going to motivate the base a little bit more. I understood her strategy, which was to go after rural Indiana, but we saw in Marion County we didn't have the turnout that we needed. We didn't have it in Lake County in our urban areas. So maybe, again, hindsight is 2020. Now, to see them together, they worked really well together. I'm telling you, I interviewed both of them on my show, and there was a chemistry between the two of them that was undeniable. However, they didn't actually, energize the base in the way that we had hoped they would. I had high hopes for Jennifer. I thought she was hitting her marks as well. We knew it was going to be tough, but we also were I was hoping that Rainwater would do a little bit better in pulling some more of those Republican votes. That's why we thought we had a chance, but he actually did worse this go around than he did in 2020.
Yeah.
So I was hoping he would get about 10 or 11% like he did in 2020 election, and that would help Jennifer. But again, we didn't get the turnout that we needed in our urban centers, so I'm not sure if we did, we energized our base like we should.
Turnout always plays a role, right? Allie, Mike Braun's transition team includes 3 alumni of the Mitch Daniels administration. Does that suggest some similarities between Braun and Daniels?
Yeah, I think that Governor Braun is going to be pulling from all the best talent across the state as he makes his transition and as he puts his team together. Listen, Mike Braun had a historic victory. This is the largest margin of victory for an open governor's race since the year 1980. And I think, once again, just like President Trump, we've just seen that the candidates that listen to the issues that matter to the voters are the ones that come away with these historic victories. And the same can be said for Hoosier voters. Mike Braun has listened to what they wanted every step of the way, and that's going to be reflected in his legislative agenda as well.
Allie, Braun made no mention of his new lieutenant governor, Micah Beckwith, in his victory speech, as you know. He said that he wants to avoid some of the social issues that Beckwith ran on. So how could that impact maybe their working relationship?
I don't think it will impact their working relationship. Look, obviously everyone knows that they do have some differences, but Governor Braun has recognized that they do have differences, but that their differences can be productive because it helps bring more people together and hopefully can work in a productive way. And I know that it's Governor Braun's priority to do so.
Staying on that topic, Dana, could Beckwith turn into maybe a distraction for the Braun administration?
We already know he's a chaos creator, so I imagine it's going to happen whether Mike Braun wants it to or not. Mike Braun's going to do his very best to keep a lid on Beckwith, but you just can't keep a lid on somebody that says, if you don't assimilate to the American way of life, we're going to round you up and deport you. Which, honestly, which American way of life are we talking about? But secondly, I hope that Braun expands who he talks to. I have yet to see real dialogue with Black and brown folks in Indiana, so I hope his cabinet reflects, the other 15% of our state population, and it's not it is devoid of real diversity. So I'm hoping, listen, I want these guys to be successful because Indiana right now is at the bottom of every statistical category. We need to talk about maternal health care. We need to talk about teacher pay. So I want these guys to be successful because Hoosiers' lives are depending on it.
No doubt. I think that should always be the case, regardless of who's there, regardless of your ideology. You should always be rooting for them to win because it impacts all of us. Allie, is there any chance of that happening with what Dana was saying about maybe bringing in some other voices, some other, thought processes into his administration?
Yeah, actually, I agree with what Dana said. And actually, in some statements, post-election statements that Governor Braun has given, he's fully acknowledged our shortcomings and where he wants to focus his time and energy, maternal health being one big priority that he's brought up repeatedly. And I do think as we continue through the transition, people will be excited to see some new faces at the table and giving input that we haven't seen before. Like, obviously, there is a wealth of knowledge and talent to pull from that have experience and have worked for productive, successful governors before. But I do think you're going to see a lot out of the Braun team that is new and innovative and forward thinking as well.
Before we wrap up, ladies, and I appreciate you coming on, I want to look ahead to the legislative session. The makeup of the General Assembly has not changed, obviously, though. The governor has. So this is for both of you. Keep it quick. Where are some places you see lawmakers working well with Braun on, and where might there be a little bit of friction? Dana, you first, 30 seconds.
Well, hopefully there'll be a little bit of more work in collaboration and infrastructure and making sure that we get high-speed internet all over the state, because there are still counties that are struggling. We also have some healthcare deserts, so I believe that there are enough people that care about the lives of Hoosiers that they can try to work on those healthcare deserts. Also, another area I think they need to work on is housing, affordable housing at every economic level. So hopefully, those things can come together. Again, I want people to be successful because Hoosiers need that.
All right, Allie, 30 seconds to you. Take us home.
Yeah, I agree. And, one of the benefits of our Governor Braun is that he comes from the legislature, so he is going to have a very unique relationship with them that I think will be really productive for Hoosiers. I think they're going to look at property taxes, school choice, and improved education outcomes, and affordable access to health care, just to add on to the things that Dana said. And I think you're going to see a lot of alignment between the legislature and the governor's office, just because he does have that experience to work with them productively.
Well, we will be watching it, living it, and, of course, talking about it here every Sunday morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Good to see you both. We'll talk soon. Thank you. We'll be right back. Thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics this week. We'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30, and be sure to check out the All Indiana Politics podcast online at wishtv.com. Have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics this week. We'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30, and be sure to check out the All Indiana Politics podcast online at wishtv.com. Have a great rest of your weekend.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.